habitual constructs of my mind and access directly what's in the asker. Bring those things forward, those energetic patterns from the generations. Go back and we talked about this one the other day, was the quote in the scriptures that goes, look to the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. Whatever your fathers, mothers, and of course that isn't a sexist thing, it isn't just males, but whatever your ancestors engaged in are energetic patterns that arrive intact in you and play out and set up the frequencies that bring experiences into your life. Applying forgiveness allows us to access those things and bring them forward in the presence of love to be removed and put an end to that experience. And when you I don't care what you do, you can fight against something day after day after day after day, and it's going to keep coming after you. The day you stop,
as far away as your desire for it, as long as you desire it not and cherish littleness instead, by so much it is far from you. By so much as you want it, it will bring it nearer. So let go of all the littleness. And so we appreciate Dr. Tim doing the Course in Miracles all year long. And we're filling in for him. He's on vacation this week. I'm giving Michael just a moment to get dialed in. The recording actually ended a few minutes early, so we've got just a few minutes. I'll invite you to also go to our website, which is WHYAGAIN, WHYAGAIN.org. And you can click on the Start Here button, and that will take you to where there's just all kinds of information and get you started on where to begin. There's also, and this week, the first 3 days of this week, we were playing the AA programs, 12 steps, and several callers calling in and giving the comparison to this work. And that information can also be found not just in the notes for the last 3 days, but if you go to the website and you click on the Start Here button or scroll down and hit the bullseye, both of those take you to the same place. Scroll down just a little bit and you will see there's a picture of a guy carrying a piano up 12 steps. And it says, click here to go to radio shows specifically related to addiction programs. And if you click that, it will take you to a page where there's MP3s about the 12 steps. There's also a button that says, do you want to stop the addiction? Where do you start? And if you click that, and down near it has several links and suggestions for watching different movies and things. And then at the end of that, it says, listen to the MP3s of Recovery Wednesdays. And that started in January of 2016 and went through December of 2016. So it was the entire year. And it was on Wednesdays that we would talk about the recovery and 12 steps and AA. So really good information out there. And so just scroll through the website. You'll find all kinds of things. And just click and listen and watch and then let us know. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. We are delighted that you're here. We're just about to our last show of the year. One more tomorrow will be complete for another spin around the sun. And we appreciate your participation. We appreciate, especially when we get to hear from you and what's on your mind. Of course, the thing that's always on our minds is forgiveness. And the fact that this genius process that this man Yeshua brought to the earth 2,000 years ago has been so totally covered up, turned inside out, backward, upside down, that I don't know of anywhere else on planet Earth that you will find, one, a definition of forgiveness that is accurate and true, and two, the technology of how to use it, and three, and I say this from the perspective that I literally taught this process for better than 35 years without understanding why and how it works. I explain it very simply now. It's just, I mean, when you've got the brain cells, it's so obvious that this is what's happening. But literally, I taught it because it worked. You know, when I was first introduced to this idea of the word forgive being shabag and it meaning to cancel, and that when we applied the canceling of goals, that perception collect. Well, I wasn't introduced to that. Just that applied this canceling of a goal. There was no explanation about what happened, why it happened, and it was sort of, for me, it was sort of incidental. This goes back 40 years ago. It was incidental that I mentioned it on occasion because I'd been introduced to it. I'd mentioned it in my workshops. And what really got my attention and got me to go back to working with the first century idea of canceling goals, but there was no explanation as to what happened or why it worked. But I'd have people who would say, you know, Michael, I've been doing that canceling of goals thing. That's really powerful. I was like, oh, really? Okay, well, let's work with it. Let's see what happens. And after 35 years of teaching it, I finally developed enough brain cells to understand why it happened and how it happened. Until just a few years ago, I couldn't explain why it worked. And now, with the brain cells to understand it and putting it together, I look around the globe and it doesn't exist anywhere. You know, I've worked with Course in Miracles for, I don't know, about the same time period. And after I understood the forgiveness process from the first century Aramaic, I had the brain cells to recognize that the definition of forgiveness in Course in Miracles was identical. And I visited all kinds of groups and, you know, looked at all kinds of posts, and I've not met one person yet working with A Course in Miracles that understands what forgiveness means, and more importantly, how to do it. If you go to Workbook Lesson 305, and, you know, without having the first century Aramaic behind me, I had no recognition of this. But with the brain cells from the first century Aramaic, when I read the passage, I think it's in paragraph 7 of Workbook Lesson 305, it says, let go all the things you think you want. Your trifling treasure put away, and leave a clean and open spirit. Recognize that that was forgiveness, unless the eyes to see and the ears to hear. I didn't until I started to understand it from the Aramaic, and then it was just like that stood out like a, you know, the old proverbial sore thumb. Let go all the things you think you want. So let's recognize that perception is a construct of the mind. You've never seen anything with your eyes. That's all a lie. I mean, that's all a lie. I don't care. And please, if you think I'm not telling the truth, put me up with the greatest ophthalmologist in the world. Put me up with the greatest brain scientist in the world. Let's talk to anybody on the planet, the greatest philosophers, the greatest psychologists. You have never seen a thing with your eyes. Your eye is an antenna. It's a receiver for light. That's all it is. You can't see out through a receiver. You can't look up the wires on the back of your TV set and look back through the antenna and see out into the world any more than you can look out and see anything through your eyes. Now, we've been taught and we believe, and it seems apparent that, gee, I just open my eyes and I look out there and I see all those things. If you go back to Yeshua 2,000 years ago, he said, be careful, don't judge by appearances. Everything that you think you see out there is an appearance in your mind, and it comes from your mind. It's generated by your mind. It's internal. There's no light energy going into the brain. There's no sound energy going into the brain. The brain doesn't hear. A little drum in your ear vibrates in response to the movement of air molecules. And that creates an electrical frequency. Like, what a genius piece of work that is. Creates an electrical frequency in the brain that causes brain cells to fire, and we think we hear. But if my brain cells for a particular word, like see, if my brain cells are, well, I see, I open my eyes, I look out there. Whenever somebody says, what did you see? I think, well, what's out there? If I have accurate brain cells, I'm not going to say I saw what was out there. If I accurately understand, I'm going to say, oh, yeah, the construct of my mind in response to that frequency, that set of words, shows me a picture, converts that frequency into a picture that I think I see through my eyes, and now I know better. I know that it's generated by my brain. And if I judge by appearance, if I think that I'm looking out there, when in fact I'm looking at something in my brain, I mean, life is going to be plain screwy. Take a look around at how screwy it is. Everybody thinks they're looking at everybody else with a problem, and nobody knows. Or rare is the person who has a clue that they're looking at the product of what's firing inside of them, and they have no idea how to collapse what's firing inside them, so they get to live the title of my book. Why is this happening to me again? Or, we'll get phone calls at Heartland from people, hey, I understand you have this book. Why are they doing this to me again? Why am I doing this to myself again? When I realize that everything I think I see with my so-called body's eyes is a construct of my mind, then when there are errors in the constructs of my mind, and how do I know if there are errors? Hostility or fear will enter into the picture. When I understand that that's a construct of my mind that tells me about the content of my mind, and then I have the technology of forgiveness. Oh, how do you do that, Michael? Let go all the things you think you want. Well, but I have this wonderful goal for somebody to cherish me. You want me to let go of that? You want me to cancel that? Why would I do that? That's a perfectly good goal. I should have that goal for everyone, shouldn't I? I'm in agreement with you. You absolutely should. Well, here you are, Michael. I'm in pain and they're really hurting me, and you're telling me to cancel my goal for them to cherish me? Are you crazy? No. Well, why are you telling me to cancel a perfectly good goal? Because your goal, whenever you load it in your mind, causes your mind to utilize that hostility or fear-based corrupt data to build the appearance, the picture in your mind that your eyes tell you see out there. And until you clean it up, so let go all the things you think you want. And here's where my take is on that thought from the Course in Miracles, your trifling treasure put away. If you want anything other than to experience yourself as the human being that you are, as the conscious active presence of love, if you want to experience anyone else as other than what they are, then your mind is going to tell you all kinds of falsehoods. And once you recognize what's really important, to experience yourself as active present love, to experience those around you as active present love, your trifling treasure has now been put away. If you think you want money from them, if you think you want approval, you want love, you want you want them to keep their word, you want them to buy what you wanted them to buy, you want to sell, you want them to do, you want all of that is trifling treasure that keeps your mind driven by goals that are absolutely, totally, completely meaningless. So your trifling treasure put away, your goal collapsed, canceled, pardon me. Your perception collapses. Now, you remember we've talked about the Harvard research that tells us that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, there's a maximum of 9 bits of data that go into building your perceptual construct. So if you think of it as the screen of awareness, the screen of your conscious mind can hold 9 bits of data in a time frame where, according to laboratory stats, they can measure 10,000 units of information firing. So you get to see a tiny fragment, and you want that tiny fragment to be clean and open for truth. But it won't be clean and open as long as you're holding a goal that resonates some form of hostility or fear in you. And your mind will hallucinate a world, and it doesn't matter. It can hallucinate the terror on a spouse, a child. How do you suppose something like shaken baby syndrome can possibly happen? This 280-pound, 6'6" guy shakes a baby to death? How could that possibly happen? Because that 6'6", 280-pound guy was threatened by this baby. Well, come on, Michael, that's pretty silly. How could a little baby? Oh, all that guy has to do is not know how to manage his own mind and allow his hostility filter to be active. And the smallest infant can resonate the greatest threat. And then behavior will be based on that object of attention being a threat. And the child is injured or dies. Look at, the language going on in our culture. You look at how many people are out there calling for civil war. What have we got? We've got people whose hostility filters are set, and everything they look at is a threat, and they have no idea that they're the ones doing the threatening. They're the ones making the raging, insane phone calls. They're the ones who are plotting to capture, politicians. They're the ones, on and on it goes. So your trifling treasure put away, your goal canceled. You now have a clean and open space where love can presence itself in your mind. And when love presents itself in your mind, pain dissolves. Why do you suppose the technology for achieving that goal was disappeared? Almost, as far as I can tell, almost as soon as it came to the planet, it was disappeared and turned around into forgiveness is about how you're the cause of the pain in me. Well, yes, I've been through this pain 87 different times with 42 different people, but you're the cause of the pain in me, and therefore, if I puke on you enough, then my pain will go away. And I have no idea how to bring correction. Oh, I know. Oh, yeah, they told me I let you off the hook because I'm in pain. If I let you off the hook because I'm in pain, have I done anything to address or deal with pain that's inside of me? The perceptual apparatus of virtually every human being on the planet has been fooled. Do you remember in the ancient scriptures they said there will come a time when the whole world will be fooled? If your perceptual apparatus shows you that someone else is the cause of your pain, you need to learn to call yourself a liar and to give that up. To bring forgiveness to that part of your mind that holds whatever that pain is about. We've just gone through that whole process, through the worksheet process with our character Richard in the book. And here we are on December 30th, and we're down to the last page of the book. And so I'm going to open the book here, and we're going to complete that last page today. Will you make the difference? If you're following along with us in the book, or if you want a copy of the book and you don't have one, it's out of print, but there are copies available on eBay, on Amazon. You can buy used. or you can go to our website and download it free. So if you're following along, page 181. Dear reader, the purpose of each tool in this book and our work is to support the healing of ourselves, each other, and the planet. People from many nations are working with and supporting these tools. Will you join with our International Heartland family in being responsible, using the tools, and perhaps being the voice that will bring peace and healing to the world? If anger or upset in any form play a part in your relationships or life, will you choose to be a voice for peace? And recognize that the mind is the liar. The mind is the liar. It is the greatest trickster in the world. It can show you anything you tell it to show you. And words are a key. If I use the words of denial, you made me mad, I just gave my mind a set of instructions. Mind, show me that my mad is caused by them. And notice throughout your life you've been able to hallucinate a whole series of people who are all the cause of your mad or your sad or your glad. Doesn't matter. Restoration to conscious, active, present love is the objective of this work. And we're delighted that you're here to be part of accomplishing that objective. And Miss Jeanie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
We do have a hand up, and I believe that
Awesome.
it is Miss Julie, area code 541. You're on the air.
Oh, I'm in the queue. I'm on the show.
Hey there, young lady. Welcome.
Oh,
Loud
shoot.
and clear. Welcome.
Oh, you can
Merry
hear
Christmas.
me? Okay. Hi, you can hear me? Wait, hold on.
Loud and clear.
You do hear me?
Got you. Loud and clear.
Yes, you're good.
Okay, well, this is weird. I'm driving across Nevada, and my thing put me in the queue, and I didn't even do that. But I'm happy to be in the queue. But we were just switching drivers, and I'm coming back from Salt Lake City, and it's snowy, and just had my birthday yesterday. That was fun.
Well, happy Eternal Day. I didn't know what you're...
Yeah, on the end of the year. Tax write-off.
Aha.
Can you hear me?
You arrived
anyway.
just in time.
I know, my dad wanted that. Anyway, so let's see. So I do have to concentrate on driving, but I have to say I did a worksheet last night, and it was about drinking too much coffee. And I realized some things. It went way back. It's about pleasing people. Can you hear me okay? I'm tangled up in my...
You don't ever have to ask again. We got you loud and clear, Julie.
Okay, good. All right. I need to concentrate. Okay.
Well, should we let you get back to driving then?
Highway. Yeah, I'm driving now. But I'm good.
Should we let you get back to focusing on driving, or do you have something you want to share with us?
Well, probably. I'm not ready to share. I can share another day, but it was pretty powerful to see that I used the app. That's what I wanted to say. It's the first time I've ever used
cool.
the Dragons one. I've never used that before, and it's pretty cool. And so
tell us about your experience of it.
I was able to copy the things I wrote and then paste them into my phone on my notes, and that was nice to be able to do that feature. And so I can reread them because I got some really good insights, and mainly because I haven't done a worksheet in a while. There was a pile, a lot of connections. So I'm grateful for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we're just making it home from all the storms and everything, and And I did send you a card finally before I left, so something's in the mail for you. Should arrive soon.
Okay, great. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm. So, is all well with you?
We are rocking. Yes, all is well. We've been through COVID. We've been through COVID, which is an interesting experience.
Mm-hmm.
With quite a tweak to the immune system, and actually a pretty powerful learning experience for both of us. We're actually seeing gifts come from it, and I'm thinking about writing something about that, getting a different perspective on the whole COVID thing and the challenges to health. So that's been a powerful thing, and Jeannie's dad is still in rehab. They're working with seeing if he can get him back up on his feet. All three of us had COVID, and so we went and visited him yesterday, and he was, the 2 days before that I saw him, it's like, I don't think he's ever coming home again. And yesterday was hopeful. He was back, and so I think we're on the right track. And now that he's in rehab and out of the hospital, he didn't get very good care in the hospital, unfortunately. But he's getting some good support and care in rehab, and so he's rocking. Yesterday he almost beat us at dominoes.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love dominoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, I hope maybe there's some other people on the line. I'm willing to go ahead and listen, be a listener. But I really appreciate every day. I appreciate your work and the work that I'm able to do.
Awesome. Well, you travel safely, and holy day blessings, and holding the space for the best year yet of your eternal life.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
take care.
You.
Bye-bye.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have 35 minutes. We've got plenty of time. There's no hands up, so I will just put something out there and let you address it. And then I had a session with someone this morning, and she's been doing the worksheets for quite a while, but her husband has just started working them, and he has an issue with being responsible for bringing events into his life. And I explained to her that responsibility is actually being able to respond instead of just reacting, and explained how, we draw things to us. And I even gave her the example of the study that was done where they did a lineup of like pedestrians or whatever, and then had the prisoners come in one at a time and pick out of the lineup who they would attack. And they all picked the same person. I said, that's an example of that. There's a vibration that comes off of us, and we ask for certain behaviors. And her husband has trouble with that. Some things happened to him as a child, and she didn't go into any detail whether it was abuse or what, but that there's no way that as a child he could have asked for that. And so I attempted to explain genetics and how it gets passed on. And, of course, people always pick the extreme, like a baby, like you said, being shaken to death or whatever. How does that happen? How do you ask for that when you're really not even at a cognitive state yet?
So, two thoughts. One, you might send her a link to the first hour of today's show, because we got into the energetic dynamics of that somewhat in that show. So that might be useful to him to get some comprehension. And then most people think that asking is saying, oh, I want this, or please bring me that, or get this for me. And that's not where our asker is. The key to me in this, to understanding this principle, is to recognize that our asker is in the unconscious mind. It's not what we say with our mouths. If I say, I don't ever want to be abused again, in my head I'm saying, I'm finished with abuse, I'm done with abuse. But what I resonate in my asker is the energy of abuse. And so by simply mouthing the words, by engaging in the frequency of, I don't ever want to be abused again, I just resonated abuse. And guess who's going to show up? Literally, everything in our lives is energy, including our thoughts and our words. And when I resonate a thought, energy by definition is motion. And so when abuse, the only thing that can resonate in me in response to I don't ever want to be abused again is abuse. And so firing those brain cells, I set up a literal, measurable energy wave. If we go back, and I don't know whether we addressed this in the first hour or not, I didn't listen to the whole show, but way back, 40 plus years ago, I used to keynote at a conference called Global Science. And one year, a gentleman named Marcel Vogel came to and keynoted also at Global Science. And Marcel is a guy who was the only non-degreed scientist that IBM ever had on their staff. Marcel, when he was 11 years of age, invented and patented chemical light. A light stick, if you go to a football game and you buy this plastic stick that has tubing in it, you break the tubing and the chemicals mix and it lights up. He invented that at the age of 11. Family didn't have the money to patent it, Marcel patented it. The reason that your computer works is because Marcel invented the magnetic coating that goes on the plates in your hard drive that stores information in your hard drive. That's the kind of mind Marcel had. So this particular conference, he brought this Delaware camera. And the Delaware camera is different than your standard camera. Your standard camera, there's an aperture. You hit the shutter, the aperture opens, lets in a certain quantity of light. That quantity of light hits the photographic plate and is registered there. The Delaware camera, between the aperture and the photographic plate, there's a tuning mechanism, much like a radio. So you can attune to different frequencies. So when you've attuned to a particular frequency, the energy that comes in through the aperture that registers on the photographic plate is whatever the camera is attuned to. So, for instance, if I take a picture of an acorn, light energy bounces off of the acorn, hits the photographic plate, and I develop it, and there's an acorn. But if you tune the camera correctly, and you take a picture of an acorn, what shows up on the photographic plate is an oak tree. Now you say, well, wait a minute, wait, Michael. Now that's pretty silly to think you could take a picture of an oak tree from an acorn. Well, let's think in terms of, let's be physicists for a minute. Let's think in terms of physics and energy. And let's be gardeners for a moment. Has anybody here ever planted, let's say, I don't know, let's say an acorn. Would you plant an acorn and expect to get tomatoes from the acorn seed? Would you ever expect to get corn, honey, wheat, beans, rice? Would you expect to get a new car out of the acorn growing in the ground? No. What are you going to get? You're going to get an oak tree. So obviously, if you know how to decode it, the picture or the instruction set for the oak tree is in the acorn. Here I am sitting in a room, and I don't have a tuning mechanism for the 1,000 different television stations, pictures, and voices going through the room. But the minute that I set up a tuning mechanism for one of those pictures and voices, I'm all of a sudden watching Channel 3. It's here. It's in the room. I have to have the decoder. Well, what the Delaware camera was able to do was to decode the frequencies that were sitting in front of it that are invisible to the eye and seemingly couldn't possibly be there, but obviously, seeing as how you will never plant an acorn and get a tomato plant out of it, the frequency, the pattern, the vibration, the image of the acorn or the oak tree has to be in the acorn. Now, I've seen pictures taken, in one case, pictures of a fetus in utero at 1 month, at 2 months, and at 6 months. And you could see the developing fetus. All 3 pictures were taken the same day. Now, wait a minute, Michael. Now, how can... Well, obviously, if you know how to attune to, some little man doesn't jump inside of the single cell at conception and say, okay, I'm going to write the program for tomorrow, and then jump out of the cell, and then the next day jump in and say, oh, now I'm going to write obviously the whole program for the unfolding of that physiological system is written in the single cell at conception, and it's going to unfold. If you knew how to decode it, the same as when I know how to decode channel 3, I can watch channel 3, then obviously I can attune to that frequency. Whenever you put out, if you go back to that scriptural dictate that says, ask and you receive. And again, remember your asker is not in your head, it's in your heart, it's in your unconscious. So if I come from 1,000 generations of abuse, children who've been beat up, who've been starved, who've been murdered, whatever the crazies are, frequency is coded in my structure, in my asker. And the reason for doing the work of forgiveness is all the things that have ever showed up in your life that you say, I didn't ask for this and I didn't want this, you've got to forgive if you want to be finished with those things. And remember that forgiveness doesn't mean you're going to let somebody off the hook for what they did. Forgiveness means I learn to go in and decode what is in my asker, and I remove from it what is not in harmony with my conscious awareness today. And if I don't do that, then guess what life is designed to do? Life is designed to send me somebody with the decoder. And when they show up to decode the instruction sets that you hold of deserving abuse or trauma or drama of any kind, it's not going to be fun. A whole lot better to utilize the technology of forgiveness to go inside the hidden parts of the mind and clean out what never belonged rather than play it out. If we look around at the insanity going on in the world today, we can see what kinds of trifling treasures people are carrying around in their minds. And if we want things to be different for our future generations, for ourselves or our offspring of the future, if we want it to be different, then somebody's got to do something about the state of affairs as it is today. I can remember when my son was born 42 years ago. I'm holding this miracle, and what comes to mind is if somebody doesn't do something, there isn't going to be a world for this child to grow up in. Things were that crazy. And this body of work is what I did. That was a major motivator for me to step forward and to diligently study, work with, practice, and engage these tools to bring together an understanding that was logical, rational, and that anybody could take hold of, and it would work. I often think about one of the shows some time back that Dr. Tim did as a psychologist, and he was talking about how there were different therapists who just had, monumental results with people, and he or other therapists would go and study with them, and nobody else could produce the result that therapist could produce. There was something intangible about it. And the thing that attracted Dr. Tim to this work was that he found that if he took these tools and handed them to somebody, anybody could produce the result with the tools. Because the tools are working with the truth of the way this human energy system operates, and it gives us access to our asker. Our asker is something that is a cumulative energetic pattern that brings in all of the energetic patterns that have been engaged by every mind in our bloodline. It's all stored there. It's like, who told us that every thought, every feeling, every reality structure in every mind of our previous generations was stored within us and was part of the energy pattern, part of literally the source pattern that set up the frequencies that draw results into our lives? And instead of those frequencies radiating out from us energetically, creating these high energy waves that leave the mind that Marcel Vogel with his camera could take a picture of, instead of those things radiating out from us, that forgiveness was a way to open the veil of the temple, the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind, come back into direct relationship with those insane and pained things that were in the asker that we really say, I don't ever want to have that happen to me or anybody ever again. To confront them in myself and remove them. And that's the objective of forgiveness. Does that fit? Make sense, sweetie, for your question?
It does. The only other thing that he might ask is, as a child, though, how do they, and I know that goes back into genetics. I gave her the example of my mom, too, but, how does a child ask for that if they're even still too small to cognitively think of something like that?
Well, but here's the thing. Your asker isn't cognitive. It's not part of the cognitive mind. Your asker is the accumulated energies within your unconscious. Generational patterns of energetic engagement become the energy that directs the creative process in our lives. So there's no conscious requirement to asking for something. The reverse is what's necessary, and that is to open what's in the accumulated generational patterns and remove all the asking for insanity. And the way that we ask for something is we just need a frequency to pass over the mind. If the frequency passes over the mind of, I never want to be abused ever again, then I just asked for abuse. I just set up the frequency. The day you collapse the perceptual construct of the mind based on destructive energetic patterns for the generations, which would be called the asking, the day we can bring those patterns forward in the presence of active love is the way they dissolve, disappear, and are forgiven, are removed. So how can a child do that? All a child has to do is have a father or a mother that was abused or abusive. And if nobody brings those frequencies of abuse forward to the presence of love in order for them to be dissolved, if no conscious agent interacts and cleans that up, then that's set in stone in the ass of the child from minute one of conception. And the whole objective of the forgiveness process is to collapse the constructs of the mind that tell us it's all about somebody else and get down to the root of the energetic pattern that never belonged and remove those root experiences, those energetic patterns that keep repeating in our lives. It's like, whoever told us that we were conceived with a structure that had every thought, every feeling, every reality of every generation in our bloodline. Who told us that? And then who told us that those energetic patterns would be what would unfold and manifest in our world? And who told us that forgiveness was the way that you could open those patterns to shift and change them and to be removed? And that literally is what this work is totally and completely about. Removing those patterns.
Awesome.
It is awesome to understand, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We have 16 minutes. Does that bring up a question for somebody? Do you need further clarification on that? I will definitely direct her and her husband to listen to the whole 2 hours today.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. And, if you and I, sweetie, had been sitting in, any listener in the room, on the show right now, I guarantee if we'd have been in the hometown of any one of you that's listening right now, and we've been sitting up on a platform, your local library, your local church, or your local prison, and you were there and you heard this conversation, and Jeanie and I stepped off the platform, you'd be coming up to one or both of us and saying, well, what about? How does this work? That's what we're here to answer for you. So if we were there live in your hometown and stepped off the platform, finished our presentation, and you'd come over and ask a question, then please push one right now and ask that question. That's what we're here for.
And speaking of asking questions, if you haven't updated your app or if you haven't downloaded it, please go to your app store, whether it's Google or iPhone. It's in both. And Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, and download the app. There are 2 different worksheets, wake-up sheets that you can do. There's the Dragon Klingon game. There's all the commitments. There is a link to our schedules and what's going on online and Zoom, and a link to more, which takes you to just a whole lot of different links. And then there is a link to how to access the radio show. And on any page of any of those, you can ask a question right there. You can just click the little ask a question button and type out your question, and it sends me an email. And then we will address it on one of the radio shows, and we will send you back an email and let you know what date and time we answered your question. So please take advantage of that as well. If you're doing a worksheet or a wake-up sheet on the app and you run across something, you can stop and ask the question right there and then continue.
Yeah, I'm just so thrilled about how the app has developed. Jeanie, your work on that has been just awesome. And the fact that we have this now available on a global scale is just, to me, it's like beyond exciting. All the years of work that have been put into putting this together, and the fact that we can just hand that to anybody on the globe and they can access forgiveness right there on the spot is, beyond comprehensible and just so amazing and awesome that it's there. And, when Julie a few minutes ago talked about the Dragon Klingon game, one of the things that's in the app, there are 2 different worksheets. You can do a simple form worksheet or a more complete worksheet, but there's also a thing called the Dragon Klingon game. If you click on that, it's designed for kids to look at, to start to understand forgiveness and look at what kind of things they're dragging on or clinging onto and how to forgive them. And it is a fun way for an adult to do the same. So jump onto the app. Go to your app store and type in Heartland, Heartland, one word, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. And you'll be using it. You'll be right there. I wish there were a faster way to, once people are introduced, to get them over the hump of, oh my God, what am I going to have to look at in myself? What do I have to deal with, and turning away and running from it? I've done everything I can do to creatively bring forward an understanding of the benefits of it, and still I recognize that a lot of people turn away from, no, it's just too painful, too traumatic for me to look there to deal with it. But I just want to put it out, if that's been a thought for you, that you can trust these tools to carry you through whatever is in your aster, whatever's gone on in your bloodline and your generations. And to me, that's the hope for our future. And, fortunately, this man Yeshua 2,000 years ago, who was a physicist, put forward an idea of critical mass. He said, a little leavening leavens the whole loaf. Obviously he was not talking about bread. He was talking about humanity. And we don't have to go and convert every, Hitler or, whatever, Mussolini or what have you. All we need to do is get a core number of people who understand the process and begin to use it. And, critical mass, if you're familiar with that concept from physics, you've got a substance. You may have a glass of a substance and you put a drop of a different substance and 2 drops and 3 drops and 10 drops and 50 drops. And at 50 drops, the original substance doesn't change. But then you put the 51st drop in critical mass and the primary substance shifts its structure totally. So if we can get enough people who will use these tools, energetically, we'll come to a point where we hit critical mass. That's what we're here to promote, is to get that critical mass through the understanding of tools and using it. And the app just makes it so much easier to use. So,
you're breaking up, Michael. I don't know if your microphone just came loose.
Yeah, you're breaking up too, sweetie. I don't know, there's something strange going on with the sound.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's like bubbles.
Yeah, you're like staccato. Your voice is going. So I don't know what's happening. Must be something going on with the connection. And perhaps if there's nobody with a hand up in the phone queue, we'll just call it a show and say thank you all for joining us, especially since our sound is going crazy, and holding the space for you to have the best year yet of your eternal life. Hope your holy days are truly holy, and blessings. Bye-bye.